Hi, everyone. Welcome to True Disabled Story. My name is Nico, and I use he, him pronouns. I'm a white man with floppy blonde hair, large blue and brown spectacles, and an orange, blue, and white button up dress shirt underneath a green zip up hoodie. I'm seated against an office wall. Like roughly 25% of Americans and a full 17% of Philadelphians, I'm disabled. And whether we look locally, nationally, or globally, disability communities are full of dynamic, diverse, and frankly delightful people with their own stories to tell. All we have to do is listen. As many of you know, I was born disabled. I've never known differently, and I'll probably always be disabled. So I'm naturally curious when my work brings me into contact with other disabled people with their own diagnostic journeys and own diagnosis stories. Today, I'm honored to be joined by my friend and colleague Danielle, and I'm really eager to hear where her diagnosis journey has taken her. Hi, Danielle. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. Danielle, what is your path to diagnosis like? Was this a surprise? Is it something you're actively pursuing? Paint this picture for us.
Yeah, so I'll try to paint it as quick as possible because it's funny because a lot of times my specialists that are not in genetics will be like, so what's new in your diagnostic journey? Because they're like, you really give me like a snapshot of like what's current in genetic testing because so I'm 29 and I've had a muscle disease since I was born, but I'm still technically undiagnosed. So the like main diagnosis in my chart is congenital myopathy of unknown origin. So like I was born in the 90s, so it was kind of like when they first started noticing that I had muscle weakness that I got a muscle biopsy at 8 months old, and they were kind of just trying to rule out SMA, like spinal muscular atrophy, and they're like, if it's not that, then you kind of go in a black box where we don't know what that is. So I stayed in the black box for like 5 years and did another muscle biopsy. And then they at that time they didn't give me a full diagnosis, but they were like, we think you probably have mitochondrial disease. So I stayed with that diagnosis till I was like, I think like 18, 19. And then they were like, I actually don't know if you have mitochondrial disease because mitochondrial disease, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, so it's in every cell. So pretty much anything can go wrong. So they were like, "Oh, you're doing better than we thought," So because I was quite stable muscle weakness wise, like I have been for my whole life, a little progression, but very subtle that I like don't even notice it until I like go like to a building I haven't been since I've been four, and I'm like, oh, was that step always that steep or something like that? But then so then I started the process for genetic testing because genetic testing was not as available in the 90s. It would have been millions of dollars, and now it's much more accessible. So then we started that process, and at first I was started with a lab that was connected to the hospital that was like had funding through like the NIH and all that, but they were kind of just looking at it like if they had time because they didn't have funding for cases that didn't fit in a specific category. They had more funding for like Duchenne muscular dystrophy and things like that. So like if we get to it, sure. But they were understaffed. And because it would have been like free, no insurance, so they weren't really even getting paid for it. So then a couple years went by and they hadn't got to it. So then I'm like, let's try something that insurance might cover. So I did um the I always forget if it's exome or genome. I think it's exome is like 98% of like genes in your body. And then so that revealed that I had three singular copies of different muscle diseases, but you need two to have a diagnosis, but it was three single copies of different ones. So those could be red herrings, those could be, or there's like a hypothesis that two could be working together, but there's like hardly any research on that. So then it was like back to the drawing board. And then I was like, at that point, I thought, okay, I'm like up to date with all the testing that can be done by modern society. But then I saw an organization started called the Undiagnosed Disease Network Foundation, and I saw they global genes, like a general like rare disease foundation that's like a coalition, had advertised that this new foundation had started. But the Undiagnosed Disease Network had been going on for a few years before. That was like federally funded and all that, but the foundation was like supporting patients through it. So that's where I first heard about it. And then I just started volunteering for them because like I didn't really have a specific patient community like of like being undiagnosed. Like I did have some involvement with like the muscle disease community, but not a specific condition. So I just like started volunteering, and then they were talking about other tests that I hadn't had, and I was like, oh. So then it was funny because I applied to the UDN, and then they were like, no, we can't take you, but the lab from 10 years ago said they'll take you back. And I was like, oh, but they have no resources. But it turns out within the last couple of years, they got more funding, got more staff. So then we're getting towards the end. We're getting towards present day now. But anyway, so then I talked to the lab and they're like, yeah, we can do the new RNA testing and then the full genome, which would cover that 2% that the other testing didn't do. And then they were like, so we'll try to find your muscle biopsy from 25 years ago when you were 4. And then I was like, I don't think they'll ever find that in like pathology in the hospital. I'm like, some freezer has definitely gotten misplaced over 25 years. Turns out they actually did find it. So that saves me a lot of hassle of like skin biopsy, muscle biopsy, and all those different questions. So, but they send it out in batches. So this summer they're gonna send it out in a batch with other samples, and then it's just a waiting game to see. But it's definitely like a Pandora's box of like, okay, I've done all this, and then there don't we've only solved a couple cases, but we'll see. So it's like I'm living in a medical mystery kind of is still where I'm at.
Yeah, definitely a medical mystery indeed. As you were speaking, I was imagining you like a almost like a disability tourist. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you visit this disability community, and that's nice for a while, but not
Yep.
really a fit. And then you visit another one. You pack up your medical suitcase and head out.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm also really impressed that they found that muscle biopsy.
I know I was too.
Would have thought they would throw that out or something, but
I know. I know. Or they lost power in a freezer. Yeah, but I was impressed.
thank you so much for sharing this experience. I really sympathize when you mentioned, growing up as a 90s kid. I was born in 88 myself. And I recall from my own condition not getting a genetic test done until like 2002, 2003. Uh, so I see you in that definitely. I
Yeah.
really respect this. So, Danielle, you've done a really great job helping me understand your medical journey and your diagnostic journey. And you couch it kind of in medical terms. I'm interested to know what impact your diagnosis has had on your life entirely, on those other aspects of your life. What was it like to grow up or to engage socially or academically as you're handling this health situation? What
Yeah.
impact has your diagnostic journey had on your life?
Yeah, definitely. So like I would say like for the beginning, like of my life, it was more like I have a medical condition. I didn't really relate to the disability community as a whole as much, because I wasn't exposed to it, I think that would be one main thing. But then yeah, like when people would ask like, so what's wrong with you? Because I do have like a limp and I didn't keep up with the other kids, can't run, can't jump, all that stuff. Just generally a weak person. And then also have other chronic health issues that go along with it. So I was like sick a lot. And but when someone would see you limp as a kid, like, oh, what's wrong? Like, and then so I would at first I would say I have a muscle disease. And then but when they thought I had mitochondrial disease, I would say, oh, I think I have mitochondrial disease. And then it was funny because like no one knew how to take that, you know what I mean? Because no one's even heard of that. But I didn't know any different, So and then that was kind of what I always went along with. And then I didn't really grasp how odd it is to be asked quite frequently, what's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like what that kind of like does to like the psyche. That didn't really I didn't really process that until way later. And then but yeah, and then so I always was the only disabled kid in my school because I went to a Catholic school. Like my mom like is very Catholic, not in any of the problematic ways. That's why I'm always like, yeah, Catholic, but not like, we know we don't need that's like a whole can of worms. But anyway, so like, faithfully Catholic, the spiritual stuff. But um, so she wanted me to, go to Catholic school, and like it wasn't accessible. But she was like really adamant that I can still go, like even though it would have been more stairs for me and stuff, but she was just like, it's not right that it's like so segregated, like that only certain people can go. And it's so ironic too. It's like, oh, this is a Christian school, but only, perfect people can go to it. So it was, that was fine. And I did meet some good friends there that I'm so close with. But then high school too, I also went to Catholic high school, and then so I was the only physically disabled one as well, which was tougher because I was in a small environment. So and then my class was good, so like growing up, it was mostly okay. And then but like seventh, eighth grade, you kind of feel like that difference setting in. And then but yeah, so then it was interesting. And then I knew I was disabled, obviously, because I kind of felt like I stuck out, but I didn't get involved with other disabled people because I just had that, and some people with like their negative, type of things they're projecting on me. But and then so I always felt like disability equals wheelchair. So I'm like, I don't want to take up space in a community. And then I always kind of, had that idea like, well, I don't want to take attention away. And it was kind of like that bizarre type of thing. And it's like, one, it's not a competition. And two, it's like there's not one microphone, like if it came down to one microphone, I'd be like, yes, that should go to whoever is most affected by, the systems that society sets up and all of that. But there's not one microphone, and the community is stronger together. So yeah, it took some time, but I got there eventually.
Thanks so much for illustrating that journey for us. I'm glad that you're able to come to a place of, you know, acceptance and not as much judgment. That's really a goal I have for myself as well. Thank you for being so forthcoming. As
Oh yeah.
we, yeah, as we shift into like the back half of this program, um, you're like a natural born storyteller, Danielle. I really feel like I've got a good view of um your life dealing with this condition or dealing with these medical mysteries. What advice would you give yourself if you could go back in time somehow? If we were living in like some sci-fi world where time travel is part of our everyday, you could go back and tell young Danielle one thing. What advice would you impart?
Yeah, so I would definitely encourage, like, to get involved in the disability community more earlier. And because again, I always kind of viewed it as a condition, a disease I had. So I remember being younger and being like, I wish I had someone with my exact disease that I could play with, and then like we could play games, like, and then we'd be on the same level. And it's like, well, you don't have to have the same exact condition to relate. Like, there's so many aspects to disability that are overlapping, whether someone has, this disability or that disability. And so I would suggest that. And then, it's hard to say like feel comfortable in your skin sooner. Like, I feel like it's just the past couple years where I've like stopped apologizing for like being disabled. Like it's like, oh, like when you meet a new person, like, oh, just to explain why I get out of a chair slow. And it's like, I get that addressing the elephant in the room, but it's not like a big deal. And if someone feels super uncomfortable with it, that's like on them. So it was like, I think I called myself awkward for so many years of my life that it's only been recently that I'm like, maybe I wasn't the problem. So it's like, so part of it was that, but also some of it's just part of the journey too. Because I put a lot of pressure on myself when I was younger. I was originally on like a medical science path. That was like my undergrad degree, and it wasn't what I was fulfilled in, and I never got that pride that I should have. You're supposed to be like, you go into that field because it's rewarding. And I did have good intentions of wanting to make a difference in the world. So I was like, there's no better way than going into the medical field. And I do agree that it's like very noble to go into that field for most people. Some people, go in for money, but it does take a toll on you, so that's why I do think there's that noble aspect of it. But the thing is realizing there are ways to make a difference in the world while still being fulfilled. Like you have to kind of do what's best for you and trying to find your talent and or find something that you enjoy that can also make a difference. Like, so that's like what I'm trying to do now. So trying to get that pressure off myself earlier would have been nice, but some of it's just kind of experiencing it for yourself. And as much as someone can tell you, oh, don't do this, you just have to experience it. And your brain developing when you're 25 helps probably too.
Yeah, I would think so. Definitely 100% put down that shame and that lack of acceptance that was never yours to bear.
Yeah.
Remarkable. Danielle, my last question is one that I ask everybody, regardless of project. Where can people find you online if you're open to connecting or you're trying to build a following? Or
Sure.
if not, just like promote yourself, share one recent win about your life or what you've got coming up. This is your
Okay.
chance to really, really like be your own cheerleader. So
Okay.
hit me.
Okay. Great. Thanks so much. So I do work a day job in like, the business and marketing field. So I found a better path for me. But I'll say by night. By night I go by Danielle Vates because those are the content creation channels I made because the content's all about elevating ideas about, disability and living with a rare or chronic condition. So I make a lot of content that uses humor as a tool to educate or just kind of poke fun at situations. Like one of my favorite series is that I do is like breaking the fourth wall of disability, where I reenact a moment of my life that was like an odd social interaction, but I film it as if I had like a mockumentary crew, like on The Office or whatever, where I can look in the camera because it was so often in life where I'm like, oh God, that was so. And then like, before I used to kind of blame myself, well, this is just part of it, what you can't expect to be a girl with a limp without people making odd comments, but now I'm like, no, it's actually odd to like, do this or that. So that's been good, and it's been fun to see people's reaction, and they, unfortunately can relate, but then we can have a laugh about it too, which is healing. And yeah, and then some educational content as well. And I like to give accessibility reviews of any adventures I go on. So on YouTube and TikTok, it's just at Danielle Vates. So the name Danielle with two L's, and then Vates, Vates. Some people have thought my name is Danielle Vates now, but I'm like, well, it's just pronounced Danielle Vates. But that may take some time to get it to stick. I'm still growing. I've just been doing this since last May. But then Instagram, there's an underscore before Danielle Vates. So those are my main things now. So like right now I've been doing that for about a year, making content and then kind of just building a brand, and then or maybe I'll venture off into some other things later down the line. But yeah, just having fun with that now. So feel free to connect with me on there.
Fantastic. Danielle, thank you so much, not only for sharing your story with us for this video project, but also for all you do in raising awareness and having those conversations. I will definitely check out these mockumentary videos you have. Fantastic. Danielle, thank you again. I can't wait
Okay.
to see what you do next.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for all you do as well and making this series. And yeah, thanks again.
Of course.